Hello friends, welcome back. You are watching day 5 of our 12 Days of Christmas in July series. If you're just getting started, you can find links in the top of the description for the first 4 days so you can get caught up. And if you're new around here, welcome. I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button to join our crafty little family. So for today's project, we're going to be creating this spiral bound traveler notebook. So let's get started. So the inspiration for today's project is the traveler's notebook that I created to document December. This is my book from 2019. This is actually my very first documenting December or December daily-ish kind of style book. And because I wasn't sure how bulky the pages were going to get or what I was going to be able to include, I wanted to have my book on a spiral binding so that I could create all the pages and then see how much room I needed. How big of a spiral was it going to take to hold all my pages together? And so I created mine with some very sturdy pages on the outside and then filled all the fun stuffs in the middle. And then it really did take quite a large ring to bind all those pages, but I really enjoyed working on all the pages separately and then binding them all together. This is my grand dog Holly. She's so sweet. Anyway, this is just a style that I really enjoyed, and then I also liked to be able to incorporate some different size pages as well as I was working along. I still have a couple of pictures here that I need to print, but I can do that now that I've got my selfie. Thank you to Tech Hubby for that. Here's the collection I'm working with today, and I absolutely love it. I know pink isn't for everyone, but I'm gonna win everyone over. That's my goal in my crafting life, is to make pink a acceptable Christmas color, and this is so sweet and festive. The images are a little bit more whimsical rather than vintage, but the paper patterns are gorgeous, and I love how cheerful and bright it is. This is the Winter Cottage Collection from Simple Stories. I have only one negative thing to say about this collection, and it's not negative, it's just that pre-planning would have been better. There are 4 different cut apart pages for this collection. There's 4x6, 4x4, 3x4, and 2x2, and I have trouble cutting up these pages to use the pattern paper on the back. Even if I love it, I just feel like, oh, I'm gonna get use out of this journal card or this image, so I want to save it. But I'll probably just wind up ordering a couple of extra sheets of the pattern paper because I got through nearly all of it for my project today, and I really want to still be able to use all those fun images that are still left. So that's the collection, and then it's the 12x12 size, obviously, for a large book, and I'm going to use quite a lot of these stickers as we work along as well. These are very nice cardstock stickers, so they're very sturdy and thick. And then I also worked in a piece of this acetate with the Christmas scripty words on it, and this came from Paper House. I believe I bought this at Joann's during one of their sales for open stock paper. So this would have been a good value to get ahead of time, and now I can use them for my book. So that's the supplies. I made my book ahead this time just to make it simpler. I would love to show you all the steps for every project, but there's just only so much time that we can put in a video. So I did the book ahead, still got the same large chunky spiral binding, and then I put thick paper on the outside. This is a double layer of that 110-pound cardstock, and I just scored that and then folded it over so that my cover would be thicker and more sturdy. What I did for the measurements on this, now your standard traveler notebook is going to be 4 1/4 by 8 1/4, and what I wanted to do was have that full-size page to work with, and then I added on enough to get that spiral binding in, and it wouldn't move into the portion that would be the size for the standard pages. So my book is 4 3/4 by 8 1/4, and then the spiral takes up a good chunk on that side. So what I wanted to do to help have a very nice finished edge and still have a book that I can work on that was already finished here is I just covered a strip on the outside with 1 inch of the coordinating cardstock. So this is kind of a blush pink, and I thought it worked well with all those patterns. I put it on the left-hand side where it will be inside that ring binding for all the pages. So when I put my pattern paper on, it's going to look like a fully finished page, even though some of it is inside that spiral. And then another couple of things I incorporated that were inspired by my first book was the smaller page. And these had to go in before I started working because they had to be punched while I had all the embellishments off. And then I put an envelope here to tuck in some little things on the side. And then here is my acetate page. I'm going to put a little strip of pattern paper on that, but you can see how pretty that is. I don't know if that's too shiny for the camera, but I love being able to see through those layers. So this is the book. Like I said, it's 4 3/4 by 8 1/4. And if you do not have a spiral binding system, you definitely could make this very easily, probably easier, with just rings. So if you have a good sturdy hole punch like a crocodile, you can get through multiple layers of that pattern paper and then just bind it on rings. Then you can add some pretty ribbon, twine, and all that on the outside. So you don't need to have a spiral binding system for this to work, but that's how I chose to do mine for today. So what I'm going to do is just open this up and kind of work in 2-page layouts, even though some of them have something in the middle, just a little bit of interest to have so you could see all the layers together. And so my first set of pages is going to start with the tab, and I created this with my envelope punch board with just some of the offcuts that I created while cutting the larger pieces for the pages. I just kind of want to line that up here on the outside edge so that I get this to be exactly in the space that I want. And I'm putting this closer to the top. I have a couple more tabs to work in as I go along, but this will be captured between the layers of the pattern paper and the cover, so I know it will be very secure. I've got this beautiful whimsical star pattern, and I know it's the same as that, but we're going to put a pink strip on, so that will make sense in just a minute. But I've got this cut to line up right with the base of the book. There's no extra cardstock for this project, just because I need to be able to punch through that with I have a Zutter Bind It All, and so only a certain amount of thickness is going to go through that well. Here is my strip that I mentioned earlier. I've put my adhesive on only 3 sides because this is going to hold a couple of tags, so we've got to leave room to tuck those inside. And that's going to go along pretty easily because I'm just lining that up on the outside, and that becomes a pretty decorative strip. So I've got a layering element for this page. I'm starting with this die cut die from crisp white cardstock, 110 pounds, because I want it to be sturdy. It will hang over the side, so I want to make sure that I have a good sturdy base for this embellishment cluster, and I only have adhesive behind where I put my pencil line so that I wouldn't accidentally seal up this pocket. For the next layer, I've got one of the circles cut from a different pattern, and then I've already added my sticker here just so I knew I would get my placing correct. And I'm just going to use the edge of the book as a guide. I know that this circle will show a very nice border of that doily on one side, and that is perfect. I've got a tree. So I've got a lot of my stickers, and I put them on 65-pound weight cardstock and cut them back out just so I have some time to play with them and move them around and get them situated right where I want them. And then sometimes I do that so that I can add some spacers behind. I really want it to be nice and sturdy, so I do that for extra support. So I took that same circle and then cut some pretty glittery cardstock. So this is my Snow Hill. And then I ran it back through with the stitched hillside border. And I'm just going to finish off the bottom of that circle with the snowy part. And now we're kind of creating a little scene, little ticket here. And I'm gonna put some hot glue on that because this is glittery and I don't know how well the adhesive tape will stick. So I'm just gonna go ahead and adhere it with hot glue. And And I know that will squish down through all the layers and be very secure. And this is going to be behind the focal element, so I'm just kind of positioning that where I know I can't hide that trace. So this sweet little snowman is gonna go over here and be part of this little winter scene, and it's so precious with its little pink scarf on. Okay, so like I mentioned a bit ago, this is going to be a pocket just for some tags, and so this collection has those beautiful images on the front, but they also have tags printed on the back, and some of them are even lined. So what a perfect place to add your journaling on the backs of these tags so that you can make sure to document all the memories that go with pictures that you're adding. Here is that smaller page, and this is one of the larger 4x6 cut aparts, and sometimes I don't get to use those, but all of these images fit so well with my focal point on the other page, and I just really wanted to incorporate that here. So I did the same technique for these smaller pages. I just used the amount that I wanted for the page and then added onto it to allow for room for it to be punched on the side. And then here is another one of the journal cards for the back side. This is another great opportunity to add your journaling or another picture. And it just looks really sweet all together with that background. Okay, so that's the first small page done. And then our first pocket, we're going to finish this last page here with the same pretty whimsical star pattern. The pages on the inside are still 110-pound cardstock, but I have only one layer. They don't need to be super bulky on the inside because the cover will be very sturdy. So this will help to have pages that are sturdy enough, but not create so much bulk on the inside. You don't want to make too much in here so that you can't flip your pages really well. Okay, so here is the first 2-page layout done. I think that is super sweet. And we're gonna move on to the next set. Okay, so for the next 2 pages, I'm going to layer the pattern paper and just split it this way so that I can incorporate a couple of extra fun embellishments. So this paper here had a natural border, and it makes sense to go ahead and utilize that and put it right up to the top. And then add our complementary pattern here on the bottom. Instead of adding a regular pocket for this, I thought it would be fun to have a tuck spot. So what I did was I cut a nice doily here, just the same kind of design, just the same kind of idea. I want it to be thicker. I put one of the tags on and then a couple of the sweater stickers. So one of them is flat onto the tag, and then this one I put on the spacers that I get from Really Reasonable Ribbon. So a little bit, but not too much, and it just creates a little dimension. So I'm gonna add this here pretty close to the bottom. I wanna leave room for the tag, and I know that if I have adhesive only here, I can have a tag that's that big and it will just tuck in behind. I'm going to come back in when we have all of the elements put in place and then reevaluate the sticker sheet, because I think I can incorporate quite a few of those letter stickers, the sentiments, in over top as layering elements. So we'll do that once we get all of the pieces in place. So here is a star just cut from glitter cardstock, and I think this would be the place where I would want to add one of those sentiment banners. So we'll do that when we get all the pages done. For my acetate pages, I want to cover this portion, and the reason I added them to cardstock before clipping them is that I learned I learned for my last traveler notebook that my Bind It All system does not like to cut through acetate, so it does not start until out here, and I just glued it in with my Tombow so that I know it's secure, but I didn't have to punch through it. So basically what's holding it in place is this, and I just cut my cardstock, folded it in half, and then attached my acetate to it, so it's sandwiched in between those layers. But I do want to cover that cardstock with a little bit of the decorative pattern paper, and this one goes so well. Actually, I think this whole collection works pretty well together. You can't really go wrong. And so once this is flipped over, I'm going to have another strip to cover, and that'll just go right here, right along that seam, and hide the cardstock. I love how you can see the layers through that. This next page is going to have another tab, so I'll just hold my page here in place and line that up. This one I'm putting in the middle, just because I want to stagger them so they are more visible. And because this is doubled over layers, it is very sturdy. You can pull on that and it's not going to cause any damage to it. And I want to capture that between the layer of the pattern paper and the book. So here is this layer, and I'm going to put my pattern paper on before I stick it down, because this is going to hold a tip-in, and I have to put the flap for that behind the pattern paper as well. Here is another one of the 3x4 journal cards, and I put that on the pink cardstock. Typically I would mat that, but because we're not using an alternate cardstock layer besides the book, I was able to put it right on that pink, and that works perfectly. I didn't cover the back because the paper patterns are so busy, it doesn't leave a lot of space for the journaling. So I wanted to make sure there was room where you could add writing, and we'll just add that here and line it up along the outside edge. It's kind of nice having pages that are all kind of the same size so that you can do a lot of cutting easily without having to remeasure everything. I've got another tip-in for this side as well, and I'm going to just add that here and then capture it between the pattern paper and the book. So I want to mention here really quickly, it is very important to put your tip-ins on the outside of the book, because if you put more bulk in the middle, that is going to cause it to have trouble closing properly, and so just want to make sure to keep all the bulk to the outside. Here is that page lined up. I think this might be my favorite pattern from this collection. It's just so cheerful. So I'm going to cover the back with my collection paper. This is going to layer that star pattern again because it works so well as a background layer. I'm just lining that up. I cut this pattern paper to fit just like I did for the other pages so that it would not interfere with that spiral. And then part of the winter scene is on the back. So I was able to take this one piece and then divide it and then flip over the top, and I'll layer that on, and I'll get a very cute winter scene on the back of this envelope. I made this envelope with my punch board, and then I used that same cardstock, so I knew it would coordinate very well. I've covered the flap of this envelope before I put it in the book because I thought it would be difficult to get around those angles, and I just wanted it to coordinate with the side. But we've got to close it up here and keep it secure. So I've got a label from that sticker sheet. I put it on heavy cardstock, and then I put adhesive only on the outside. So I'll just position this flap where it is going to naturally close, and then put this label right here, and we can use that to tuck in the flap and keep the envelope closed. And then inside there is room for this oh so sweet extra journal card. There is room in here as well for other flat mementos and keepsakes, so you can put some things in here and have them nice and secure. More of that pretty pink for this page. Okay, for this set of pages, I'm going to bring in some special trim when I get all the paper down. So as I'm assembling this, I'm going to be keeping all of the layering elements away from the very edge because I need that room to put my trim. I've got another one of those die cut scallop rectangles to put here just to have a nice layering of the pattern papers. And then I did wind up using some of the back of the cut apart, so there just wasn't so many full-size pieces of paper. So I did wind up having to cut into a couple of them, and I'm gonna use this as a layering element for the bottom. Then I have a pretty doily. One of the tags, I added an eyelet here, and then I ran a little bit of twine through that. I'm not using any spacers for this. I'm adding it right to the page with my double-sided adhesive. Then I'm going to bring in the star to finish off this kind of cluster. And then I'll come back in with my trim at the time when we have all the paper layers down. I think it will just be easier to do it then. So I've got my tab once again for this page. And remember that I am alternating these so that they work down and all of them will show at the same time. So I'm just going to add that here to the bottom and capture it between the paper layers. So I got a page here that I want to include and have a little bit of extra real estate but still have some embellishments. So I cut this paper to be the same height, but I added an extra amount on the side so that I could score it and then fold it over. Now I can put my embellishments on and still have a lot of room to put my pictures. So this will go right up to the edge again. And now I'll have basically a full page flip for this. This is going to be kind of a layering arrangement of the stickers with some die cuts. And I'm just going to add this second pattern on top so that I can arrange all of my fun stuffs on top. I've got 2 sets of holly leaves that are die cut and 3 of these scalloped stitch circle, and they're cut from glittery white cardstock. I'm just going to position these where I want them to fall so that I can kind of work out my spacing. And so this is going to be right in the middle. And I'll add my holly to the ones on the outside. And that way I'll have everything spaced out. I took 3 of those circular stickers off of that sheet and I put them on some larger circle die cuts just to help fill in the space a little. And what I want to do is just center those right on top of my glittery circle, and that kind of creates a border strip of embellishments. Because I'm putting these down on that glittery paper, I am hot gluing them just so I can squish through the texture. And that is a nice embellishment strip with a flip out page for extra room inside. Okay, so I've created these pages to be a little bit interactive. I wanted to have a portion that flips up, so I cut the paper to be the width that I needed for the page, but I used the full 12 inches from the pattern paper. Then I just scored it at 8 1/4 to get that fun decorative layer on the top. It's a scallop edge with a double stitch line. I just use these dies from Whimsy Stamps and it cuts a pretty pocket border, and I'm just going to add that here. This page is going to get this super adorable bear. I'm only putting my adhesive low so I don't seal up that pocket. This is one cool dude with his hat and his scarf. I have the same thing for this side as well. I've already put my pockets on just to help this video get through a little bit quicker. If you guys are interested in some like my basics for mini albums and journals, I can do a separate video for that. It just really is a lot to work into one tutorial video, having all the decorating and building the book. So if you're interested in like a basics, sort of all the things I do to create my book, let me know in the comment section and I can work up a separate video once we get our Christmas in July series done. And that will be a good way to add some basic building skills for albums. Here is an insert for our pocket here. And I've got a little bit of detailing for this page. Here's one of those tags. You see it had a truck on one side, but it has a cute little check on this side. I'm going to use that as a base layer for these cutouts. Now this was one of the journal cards, and I just fussy cut these images out so that I could work them in an arrangement that would fit on this tag. And I'm just putting these down again with my double-sided adhesive so that is flat. Here is the last package for this. Then I'll top that off with one of the stickers from the sticker sheet and putting that right here on the bottom. I've got a couple strips of that paper to cover that cardstock again for my acetate page, and then another insert for this pocket. So here's more room to add all the finishing details. I'm going to put the back cover on now just because it'll be easier than when I have all of the dimensional items added to the cover. So here's that pretty pattern paper. And I did want to add one layering pattern just for fun here at the bottom. I like those books to be finished on the back as well, so that looks very nice there. Okay, let's work on those trims that I mentioned earlier. On this page, I have left room for that pom-pom trim again. Remember we used that in our banner video and I thought it was super cute. So what I want to do is put this on this page on the outside, and I've doubled that up again. I mentioned that in our banner video. I didn't think that there were enough poms in the amount of space, so I just doubled it over and very carefully glued that trim on the top together so that I would have twice the amount of poms in the same amount of space. And this is pretty stretchy, so I kind of measured it so that I would wind up on either side with a pom, and it would be nice and finished and even all the way down. So I'm going to very carefully add this with my hot glue, and I'm going to work on it in sections so that I can keep it stretched out properly and spaced evenly. I'm just lining the edge of that trim up with the outside edge of the book. This pom-pom trim is pretty forgiving with that stretch because you can get it measured almost as close to perfect and then just stretch it to fill the space. Okay, that is going to be a really sweet decorative edge. See how that shows so nicely on the outside. Okay, let's work on the cover now. Maybe I will flatten that one out on this side. So I'm starting with my background. That's just going to coordinate with the back of the book. That lined up. I'm going to split my alternate pattern to the top and the bottom. That will leave me room in the middle for my focal point. First, I'm going to lay down this die cut doily, and that just helps to break up some of those busy paper patterns. Here is my focal point. Of course, I'm going to pick that beautiful deer tag. Okay, before I go too much further, I have more pom-pom trim to put on the edge. I've got my flower arrangement all set. These are just some pink flowers created with the cardstock. Here are some glitter stars to balance that out. I've got loopy twine bows, a couple of different colors of cardstock leaves here. Some are holly and then some are my regular flourish. The insides of the flowers are finished with some stamens, and this ribbon trim is pink wrinkle ribbon. That comes from Really Reasonable Ribbon. Just going to position that right here on the bottom, and I want to make sure not to get any of those bits over too far into where the spiral is, so I don't get any of that caught on the side. Here's a couple of charms here. I've got a deer theme going on the front, so I've got a token with a deer and then another little charm with a deer. I'm gonna overlap the edge of the tag and hide that cut edge of string under a vintage button. Got a couple of clips here to add, and I just put some pretty plaid ribbon on. I think it would be fun to have a little bit of the trim showing on top. So what I want to do is bring this over and open that up. One on the top of this tag, and that will stick out just enough on the top. Flip back to this page and put one here as well. I'm just spacing these out so that they look nice on the top of the book. Okay, let's put a couple of extra stickers in here, and I think I want to add another little set of those gifts. Here is a little sentiment to go over top of our label with our snowman, and it says burr. Another burr here off this side of our smaller page. Floral arrangement on the top, and add another layering bit here as well. I want to add some kind of sentiment over top of my star. Picking some sentiments that have a different color than the background just so that they're a little bit more noticeable. It says sweaters. How funny is that? Here's a good place for a sticker over here. Let's layer this floral. Another sentiment to put on top. Two on, stack them up on top of that floral. That's a good place for a large one. What have we got for down here? Oh, this one is perfect. Because it coordinates with the pattern paper on the other side. Brings that red over here a little bit. Let's find one for our bear, or two or more. Oh, let's put this big scripty one on there. That's nice. Mary Berry. Isn't that a baker on British television? Okay, I think that is just gonna do it. Okay, last but not least, you know I'm gonna have to put some sequins on here somewhere. And while I add these, let's talk about the question of the day. You guys are being such good sports about that, and it's so fun to learn more about all of you as well. And so my question for today does not have anything to do with paper crafting, and it isn't even actually my question. So last night at dinner, Tech Hubby was putting some ketchup on his macaroni and cheese, and I said, who does that? And he said, everyone. And I said, no they don't. And he said, ask your peeps. So he has asked me to ask you if you are putting ketchup on your macaroni and cheese, because I think that is kind of weird. So let me know in the comments if you are on Team Tech Hubby or Team Ginny for ketchup-y macaroni and cheese. And just for extra funsies, if you have another unusual food combination that you think is amazing but other people turn their nose up at, let me know that in the comments as well, because I think it's kind of funny. I put raisins and pickles and ranch dressing on my salad, and some people don't think that's a good thing, and clearly they're wrong. But anyway, that is all for our Christmas Spiral Bound Traveler Notebook album for today. If you enjoyed this project, make sure you come back tomorrow for day 6. Leave me a comment and a big thumbs up on this video. Remember, you can find links for this product and our social media sites in the top of the description. If you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye.